Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 87 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Now, before we start today's podcast, I just want to apologize to all my fans out there. As you all know, I've been in Japan for about a month. I've returned. I've been back for almost 2 weeks at this point, but I haven't really gotten around to doing more content on the Tavern. For that, I apologize. My schedule's been a little bit hectic, but it's finally starting to normalize, and I will get back to regular reviews for you guys and start getting more content out there for you. I know I've said that in the past, but I will get it done now. Now that, again, everything is normalized and I don't have a lot of obligations going on and a lot of time constraints going on. So, that being said, again, I apologize for the lack of content, but hopefully today we will start remedying that, and I'll get you guys some more videos out here soon. Now, today we're going to talk about, actually this is more of a response podcast to somebody else's work. Now, anybody who has followed the Tavern for an extended period of time will know that I have the utmost respect for my contemporary fellow reviewer, Linkara. Now, Linkara primarily does bad comic books on his video series Atop the Fourth Wall, which I highly recommend you guys check out at atopthefourthwall.com. There you go, Linkara. There is a plug for your series. Because he's just really good at what he does. He's done a few things with Nostalgia Critic. I've seen his vlogs, his Let's Plays. He's got a lot of great content out there to go ahead and view. But what actually got me into Linkara's work in the beginning was I had stumbled on the internet onto the history of Power Rangers, where he breaks down every season of Power Rangers since Mighty Morphin Season 1 and analyzes it on a whole. And not only did that get me interested in Linkara's work, but it led me to the Nostalgia Critic, who I watch all the time, Phaelus's work, which I watch all the time as well. It also led me to SF Debris and all his work that he watches, and all that got me eventually into what I'm doing now with the Onyx Tavern, doing the podcast, moving into videos, doing all that stuff. And again, I count these people as my contemporaries because we're all trying to go ahead and do the same thing to exposit more information and opinions on work that's out there created by other people. Again, he's doing bad comic books and Power Rangers, and of course I'm now focusing on, you know, Power Rangers and Super Sentai and all that stuff that I've done for over a year now. So I have to go ahead and thank Linkara for his content because it led me to other internet reviewers and thus led me to be an internet reviewer myself, or a podcaster or whatever and stuff. So again, tremendous respect for this man and the work that he has done. And one of the things I wanted to go ahead and do was actually have a response to his history of Power Rangers. Anybody who actually follows Linkara knows it does take him a while to get the history of Power Rangers out, but it is well worth the wait. And as of today, he did go ahead and release his video on Operation Overdrive. It's a 4-part video to which I have the link in the description. I suggest you guys go check it out. And I would also suggest stop the video here, listen to his review of Operation Overdrive first, and then come back and listen to me. Because what I want to go ahead and do is respond to what he has said about Operation Overdrive. And the reason I want to go ahead and respond is Operation Overdrive, to me, has been one of those great ideas for Power Rangers to where, to me, it's one of those middle-of-the-pack seasons. I'm not going to go ahead and say it's my favorite, but I will go ahead and say that I like it. Now, I've been following Linkara's Twitter account on and off, and he had been tweeting about watching Operation Overdrive and his opinions about it. And at the end of his Mystic Force review, he did kind of give a comment on how he already viewed Operation Overdrive going into the review process. And this basically led me to believe that he hated Operation Overdrive. And that is a sentiment that is particularly shared with almost every Power Ranger fan out there. About every time I have a conversation about Operation Overdrive, people do claim it as the worst Power Rangers season of all time. Linkara even goes so far as to call it the worst Power Rangers season of all time. For the record, the worst Power Rangers season of all time is RPM. So Linkara, if you are listening, and I hope you are, please brace yourself for RPM, because if you thought Operation Overdrive was bad, you are really going to dislike RPM. Or, of course, that is my opinion. Maybe you will love it like everybody else does for some unknown reason, but we'll get to RPM much later. So again, you know, he really has this negative opinion about Operation Overdrive, and when I kind of realized where he was going with the direction, my original intention for this podcast was to come out and defend Operation Overdrive, to say it's not as bad as everybody thinks, it's a good series, it's fun, it's got good characters, good plot, all that good stuff. But I have to admit, after watching Linkara's video and really just kind of processing everything that he said, I'm not going to say he's changed my mind about Operation Overdrive, but he has opened my eyes to criticism that I had not seen before and things I did not realize were problems in the series. So instead of this being a video to defend Operation Overdrive, this is more or less going to be a video of me talking about how Linkara has, again, not changed my opinion, but opened my eyes to the criticism of Operation Overdrive and just what I kind of think about that. You know, here's the thing about Operation Overdrive is that, again, for years, nobody has really could point to exactly what was wrong with me. Here and there are a couple of things that the people would go ahead and say, but what happened with Linkara today is he was able to thoroughly explain what was wrong with Operation Overdrive, and I really appreciate that, because now I have an understanding of why he thinks it's bad, a better understanding probably of why other people think it's bad, and what I saw in the series. Now, before actually watching Linkara's video, the things I liked about Operation Overdrive is I really enjoyed the characters of the series. Not so much the villains, but I liked the Rangers and their secondary characters. I thought they were really great characters. I really enjoyed the setup of the series and the plot. Chasing the jewels, the Corona Rona, finding each artifact of the week, and leading into the next episode, which gave the series a serialized perspective to it, not unlike Deep Space Nine and the third season of Enterprise, to use Star Trek examples right here. And I thought that those concepts and the story, particularly the story of Tyzon, the story of Mac as an android, Rose's character, and all those different things made up for the shortcomings of the series, whatever those were, because up to this point, I really didn't think of anything wrong with the series that wasn't already wrong with Power Rangers as it was being bought by Disney. I mean, here's the thing. The things Linkara actually does bring up in the video are a lot of the technical aspects of it. The editing, the pacing, the Kalish explosions. And to be honest, I really kind of ignored those when watching Operation Overdrive, because at that point in the series, it had become standard for Power Rangers in the Disney era. So I never held those against it. But again, listening to what Linkara was saying, he did really kind of point out how they did get much worse in this season. I would almost go to say that this was the height of the Kalish explosions and all the different problems with the technical aspects that Disney had with the series. Because again, Disney just did not know what they were doing with Power Rangers and really had some poor choices. And again, Linkara pointed out rightly, the laser or quantum torpedo sound effect every time somebody would kick. That is kind of a big deal, and I never really thought of it until he pointed it out. But again, I looked at that as just a Disney era thing as opposed to an Operation Overdrive thing. But now I can see that it was far worse in Operation Overdrive than it was in previous seasons, and really a little bit more prominent than the latter seasons that we got within the Disney era. So, you know, he really kind of pointed out all the technical aspects, But the thing was, is I still wanted to defend the story because I thought the story was still pretty good. But then Linkara, being I think he's a English lit major, correct me if I'm wrong on that, really did go ahead and point out the issues with the story. Because again, I like the serialization. And the thing about serialization is that events from one episode will have consequences that pay off in the next few episodes, even to, a year or two down the line. And again, Deep Space Nine is a prime example of this. Something that happened in Season 2 would pay off in Season 6 or lend itself to what happened in a character arc. And I really thought that Operation Overdrive had did that, but again, listening to Linkara, he points out rightfully that while it is serialized and events matter from episode to episode, there really isn't any character growth or consequences for our characters. There's no real development. That the characters do remain static from the first time we meet them to the last time, save for Mac. Because Mac really does have an interesting character arc within the season, but I'll probably get to that here in a minute. And once he kind of pointed that out, I started to kind of, again, realize a little bit more of the criticism that there is no real consequences for the Rangers' actions in a lot of the episodes. Yeah, you set up Camdor and Miratrix, and that had lasting repercussions, but there wasn't anything like somebody would learn an episode or learn something in an episode, and that would inform to the character at the end. He makes great points about the character of Will in the series, who, was probably my least favorite as far as the characters go within the series, and how the final episode he says he learns to work on a team, and the thing is that throughout the series he doesn't really learn that. It just kind of comes out of nowhere at the end. Or for Ronnie, who probably was my least favorite character when the series began, we're told things about her, but she doesn't actually grow as a character. Again, I think the only person that really grows as a character throughout the series is Mac, and that's because his character is far more unique than what the other Rangers are, him being an android and all. And I do apologize if I spoiled that for anyone, but hopefully you've seen Operation Overdrive, or at least watched Linkara's video on it, which I told you to do. So I definitely see where that criticism is coming from onto the characters, because the way I originally viewed the whole thing about the characters is that you had these specialists come in who are good in their fields but aren't necessarily the best or the brightest at what they do. And I think Will was a prime example of that he was cocky, snarky, he was... I think he was intended to be a loner, but the thing was that I always viewed Will as the loner character who was rough around the edges, had these shades of gray, and had to learn to be a Power Ranger, basically. The idea that he starts off as somebody who was not supposed to be a Power Ranger, but ended up in the role anyway and was changed from that experience. I would go so far as to say my impression was that he was supposed to be like Guy Black Condor from Jetman, in the same respect that he is not somebody who would be a Ranger, but he was kind of thrust into the situation and was changed from that experience. And I always did think that that's kind of what happened, but when when Linkara actually went back and reviewed his character, I can see now that that's not what really happened. I don't know what was in my mind that thought that is exactly what happened, but I think Linkara points out very well is that Operation Overdrive has good ideas, good setup, and it's a good concept, but it's poor in execution. And once he said that, that's what really got me thinking about, well, yeah, he's right about that. If we look at all the characters, like the whole globe-trotting thing, that's a great concept, but is it really utilized as much as it should be? And the answer is no, that it really wasn't. Linkara brings up a great point about Egypt, and when they went to Egypt and the threats that they faced and the things that they did, as opposed to if you go to any other location in the series where, yeah, they're in Greece, but what about Greece is there? I guess would be the way to go ahead and put it. Is like you can say at the bottom of the screen, yes, they're in Greece, and put broken pillars in the site, but you really can't say, yeah, this is Greece, because here's the culture, here's the history, here's a little lesson, here's the feel of it. That is something that I did realize when watching Operation Overdrive, is that they may say they're in a location, but never felt like the place they were in was a living, breathing place. That they may say that they're in Turkey, but it doesn't feel like they're in Turkey. It may say that they're in Japan, but it doesn't feel like they're in Japan, other than the Sentai footage, of course. That of course, all being said, again, I started to go ahead and realize a little bit more about that. The things I did like about the series were not as I thought they were in the series, that they were not as good or not as prevalent. But I still think that Mac is a great character in his story, because, Mac, he's not Data. He is not the Asimov robots. He's not even the Bicentennial Man. He's not a lot of these different androids that we see. I mean, the closest comparison, I guess, would be Pinocchio, and that he wants to be, a real boy and so forth. But I always liked his character arc and his journey of finding out who he is, what he is, coming to terms with that, and then getting his greatest wish, the wish of, or the humanity. He wanted his humanity. And I thought that was really great. And thankfully, Linkara, I think, saw that as well. And he did point that it was a good plot twist. It was something good in the series. And of course, that opens up to many different possibilities within the Power Rangers universe, particularly since we don't see androids or artificial life forms that much, and that even in the future of Power Rangers, whether that's SPD or Time Force, artificial life forms are almost despised by those people. And of course, what we eventually see in RPM, but that doesn't particularly count since that is an alternate timeline. But again, that's going off subject right here. So I guess to kind of get back on track with this whole thing is that I'm starting to see the flaws in Operation Overdrive, and I'm starting to agree with Linkara on a lot of those points. And I particularly do want to bring up his review of Once a Ranger. Most of the time when I think of the worst team-up ever, I typically think of Trikina's Revenge, or one of those one-parters, which is kind of like a throw-off, and it's like it wasn't really important. It was just 22 minutes of action that was happening. But then when Once a Ranger came out, it had an interesting cool factor to it, but over time, it does not age well. Particularly the Ranger choices were not very good, save for Adam and maybe Xander in there. The interaction between two teams doesn't work. And what Linkara brings out as the cardinal sin of a team-up is making one team look better than the other. And that was something that was always a big deal with Once a Ranger, on how the Operation Overdrive Rangers were portrayed, and how that led to a negative viewing of their character. And I had always thought that it was Once a Ranger that really did that. That Once a Ranger kind of ruined the characters for a lot of people, and a lot of people probably didn't see a lot of Operation Overdrive and only knew those characters from that two-parter, and that they were being unfairly criticized for being what they were, which in this particular case were, how do I go ahead and put, because Linkara eloquently puts in, I don't want to go ahead and copy word for what he said, but basically the idea that these Rangers are not the noblest team of Rangers, which is okay as a premise, but when your Rangers don't learn to be that nobility, that they don't learn the lesson that the other Ranger teams who were straight as an arrow already knew, then it really makes your characters look bad. It's simply the best way I can go ahead and put it. Because again, after watching what he had to go ahead and say about the Operation Overdrive Rangers, not only in the context of Once a Ranger, but how that relates to the rest of the series, yeah, the Overdrive Rangers were just as bad in a lot of single instances as they were in the Once a Ranger story. Not to say that there weren't some good moments within the series. I still think Rose is the best character amongst the Rangers because of who she is, her personality, how well she's acted. He did bring up the acting was pretty bad within the series, and you know, I'm going to go ahead and agree. I thought Taizan was bad, but after watching some clips of Will, I forgot how bad Will was. Yeah, his actor was pretty bad in that. I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought right here. But yeah, Once a Ranger is kind of a bad example of a Ranger team up and how to do it poorly. And again, I would have you guys watch Linkara talk about it more, but all I want to go ahead and say is, like, I completely agree with him. And I had thought that the Once a Ranger had actually left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, which is why they didn't like Operation Overdrive. But again, I'm starting to see a little bit more of the flaws of the series that Once a Ranger was the epitome of. So, again, you know, Linkara is, I'm not going to say that he's absolutely right, but I'm also not going to say he's wrong on a lot of points. I mean, he criticized the suits, particularly the Mercury Rangers, but you know what? I really did like the suits. I don't think they're, again, the best. They didn't make my top 5, but they're certainly not the worst suits I've ever seen. Bulk Ranger, Operation Overdrive, whatever, and all that. So I think that criticism is the one I will go ahead and kind of defend a little bit more than the others, is that the suits weren't as bad as I think he's making them or as everybody else is making them. Because Operation Overdrive, I thought they looked good. I didn't think it was a particular problem. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because, once again, this has me rambling on about the series and all that. But again, he's really opened my eyes to it. I really appreciate him for doing that intentionally or unintentionally, however you'd like to go ahead and look at it. But yeah, I think that the series is still good. I still think it's middle of the pack. I don't think it's the worst that's out there, but now I can understand a little bit more of the criticism the people have for Operation Overdrive, which is fine. So just thank you, Linkara, for this video. I've always enjoyed these videos, and I look forward to Jungle Fury at Christmas because, you know what, he makes a good point. Not enough people talk about Jungle Fury. Jungle Fury is kind of one of those series that just blends into the background for whatever reason. So I do look forward to December. I'm looking forward to, because not only will we get his Jungle Fury video, but I graduate college. So hey, something to look forward to, I think. So I just want to thank you guys for listening to my video right here. Linkara, if you're listening, I just want to thank you for everything that you've given so far, and I hope that I can live up to your standards here in the near future. So I want to thank everybody for listening here today. You guys have yourself a good evening. And also remember, we are still doing donations for the Onyx Tavern at our Patreon account. The link is listed in the description above. Any donation we'll go ahead and do. You will get something in return for your donation. And of course, the donations will allow me to get better equipment and allow me to get the DVDs for Power Rangers series as a whole, so I can start doing high quality video reviews of the series. So please go ahead and donate what you can when you can. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening today. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.